Good morning. Today is the 10th of Iyar, 5772. We are going to be learning today the talk of the Lubavitch Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson, from the talks that he spoke 21 years ago in Sefer Sichos 5751, volume 2, page 504. Continuation to it's a Sicho from Parshas Acharei Mos exactly 21 years ago, Yud Gimel year, 13th of year. In regards what it's lately we speak about the true Gula Amitis Vashlema, the true complete redemption, upon which we await every day, and we hope that it will come every day, as the ruling in Jewish law that when one makes a promise not to drink wine on the day that Mashiach comes, he's forever prohibited from drinking wine, that it will come any day immediately. And regarding the activities that every Jew has to do in order to bring the redemption, it makes sense to stop and explain the content of redemption, and this makes it easier to understand in what it constitutes the work that's demanded to bring the redemption and how we should prepare to the situation of redemption. The content of everything is expressed in its name. Likewise, it is also concerning the redemption. One can have an idea in its content through contemplating the interpretation of its name, Geula, redemption. The concept of redemption is signified in Torah with different expressions, beginning from the four languages of Geula, of redemption. I'll take you out of Egypt. I'll take you for reformation. And I'll bring you to the in the pasuk. I'll take you out. I will save you. I will redeem you. And I will take you. And the fifth language, and I will bring you. That although all these languages have the general content of going out of exile, there's an elevation in the word and expression Geula, redemption. And one can say that because of this advantage, every redemption, in particular, that Geula Amitis Vashlema, the true complete redemption, is called by all Jews with the name Geula, redemption, plain. Only the last redemption is the true complete redemption, with since the word Geula, redemption, brings out the content of the true complete redemption. In the word Geula, redemption, we find the most wondrous thing, astonishing thing. Geula, the Hebrew word for redemption, is the same exact letters as Goyla, the Hebrew word for exile, just with the addition of an aleph. As it says in Medrash, Vayikra Rabbi, at the end of Parshas Emor, that in the word Gula, V'gula al Reisha, referring to the menorah, that on the top of the menorah there is a Gula, so there's two interpretations. Tein Amiroim, two Amiroim, Chad Omar Gula, one said exile, Lashon Golus, V'chad Omar Gula, and one said Gula, that it is redemption. It is known, the explanation in this, that the Tosefos Ho'alef Shal Yodei Nase Mibchinas Goyla B'chinas Geula. So the Alter Rebbe explains, Rebbe Schneerson of Liadi explains in his work Lekutei Torah on Parshas Ba'aloischa, that the increase of the aleph through which it becomes from the level of Goyla, from the level of exile, the level of Geula, redemption, goes on the aleph of Alufei Shel Olam, the master of the universe, God, that through the service of a Yid in exile, to draw down and reveal the aleph, the master of the universe in Golus, the exile, it becomes from Goyla, from exile, Geula, redemption. So at first glance, it is not understood. Redemption, Geula, is exactly the opposite of exile, of Golus. How is it possible that the word Geula, redemption, includes in it the word Gola, the word that signifies exile, and even more, the Geula, redemption, is constituted and only from the word Gola, till the majority of the letters of Geula are Gola, exile, and the increase is only of one word, one letter, Aleph, and also the beginning of the word of Geula remains this Gimel of Gola, of exile. And the Rebbe explains, Geula does not mean that through going out of exile we leave the life, the activities, and the world that was previously in exile. To the contrary, redemption means that the entity that was previously enslaved in exile doesn't become nullified, God forbid, but it becomes redeemed. And the accomplishment and completeness of the true complete redemption is that everything becomes redeemed. Nothing remains lost, God forbid, in exile. Nothing would be left in exile. Even those who are lost and are called so in Torah's Emes, in the true Torah, will be redeemed. The redemption will be a true, full redemption in quality and quantity of all things, from the greatest general idea till the most detail amongst them. Every Yid and all Jews, with our children and our elders, etc., with our sons and our daughters, and also their portion in the world, as the Pasuk says in Yeshaya chapter 60 verse 9, that the Jews will take along their gold and silver with them, with all their activities and accomplishments in exile. The redemption will redeem every man and all people, also nations of the world, Gentiles, and all concepts of the world, and everyone in particular with all his aspects. All positive things in exile remain also later on. Just becomes nullified their exile mentality. It becomes nullified the concealment and hiddenness that conceals their true and innermost entity, and the enslavement to the ways of nature and materialism of the world, which is a result of that. And as the Rambam rules, Maimonides rules in the Laws of Kings, chapter 12, the very last chapter of the Code of the Jewish Law, this Code of Jewish Law, Al Yala Laleiv, Shabi Moisa Mashiach Yibatul Davar Min Hagi Shalaylam. Do not think in your heart that on the days of Mashiach it will be nullified something from the conduct of the world, or Yiyasham Chidush B'Maise Bereishis, or there will be a renewal in the deed of creation, in the world. Just the world is conducts like its custom. Our sages of blessed memory say in the Gemara Brachos, page 34b, there is no difference between this world and the days of Mashiach, merely the enslavement of kings. The accomplishment would be then that v'yachzeru kulam ladasa emes, everybody will return to the true religion. V'yisake, that Mashiach will correct the entire world to serve God together, as it says in the Pasuk in Tzfania, chapter 3, verse 9, Ki oz efoich el amim sofa brura, then God says, I will transform to the nations a clear language, likroi kulam b'shem avaya, that everybody should call in the name of God, and to serve Him together. Accordingly, it is understood why the word Geula, redemption, includes the word Gola, exile, but with the increase of an Aleph. The redemption does not nullify the service in the exile. To the contrary, the exile constitutes from elevating the life in Gola and exile through redeeming all concepts of exile and making from this itself redemption, Geula, through revealing in all concepts of Gola, of exile, the Aleph, of Alufei Shel Olam, the Master of the Universe, we remove the hell and the hester, the concealment and the hiddenness in the concepts of exile, which cover up her true entity and goal. We reveal the Master of the Universe within it, the goal of all concepts of exile, for which the world, for which God created them, so that from Goyla, from exile, it becomes Geula, redemption. Geula is the Gilui HaAleph, it's the revelation, redemption is the revelation of Aleph, of the Master of the Universe in Goyla and the exile. The revelation of the truth and innermost aspect of all concepts of exile and all activities in time of exile. The revelation of godliness in all concepts of the world, how all of this reveals the honor and glory of God, because whatever God created in His world, He merely created for His glory, as we say in the chapter Kinyan Avos, which is also known as the 6th chapter of Pirkei Avos, from the glory of the Master of the Universe. This that is mentioned above is an explanation how redemption includes in it Goyla, the exile, because the goal is that redemption should elevate also the exile. It still needs explanation. Why is this, the elevation of exile, such a basic concept in redemption, till in this constitutes its name? Redemption, Geula, which is Goyla, B'Seisefes Aleph, exile with the addition of an Aleph, that a name denotes the very essence of a thing. Even more than that, the accomplishment of redemption constitutes not only in the elevation of the concepts of exile and concepts of the world, but in the redemption, in the second period, following the first period, about which the Rambam, the above mentioned Rambam speaks of Maimonides, there will be accomplished very new concepts in changing the conduct of the world, till the very basic and fundamental concept of resurrection of the dead, which is a new thing in the creation of the world. So how is it possible that in the entire situation, in the future, in the world to come, which is also above the world in exile in the second period, it is called with a general name, Geula, redemption, which is merely Goyla, the exile, with the increase of an Aleph. From this it is understood that the general concept of redemption, even the most elevated aspects of it, are connected with the service of instituting the Aleph of the Master of the Universe in Goyla, the exile, till this accomplishes the redemption, so that the word, just like the word Geula, redemption, is accomplished from the word Goyla, is composed from the letters of Goyla, with the increase of an Aleph, and all concepts of Geula, of redemption, are drawn down and elevate the Goyla, the exile, as we will explain. The explanation in this we will understand according to the first Mishnah in today's Perek, which is this week is the 3rd chapter of the Ethics of Our Fathers of Pirkei Avos, and over there the Tana says, Histakel, Akavi ben Malalel says, Histakel b'shloisha dvarim. Akavi ben Malalel was during the last few years of the Second Temple, and he said, look at 3 things and you will not come to an Aveda. And then the Mishnah continues to mention what are these 3 things. You should know from where you come, and where you're going, and for whom you're going to give an accounting, etc. Where are you coming from? You come from a drop, a seed. Where are you going? You're going to a place of worms. Well, that's what happens for a person after 120, and for whom you're going to give an accounting, for the king of the kings of all kings, that's the God. So the question is asked, what does it have to tell us? Look at 3 things. Even if it's important, anybody can count himself. All you have to say is that a person should look at these things, and everybody will realize that there are 3 things. Even if it's important, the number, why does the Mishnah have to point it out? Everybody can count in the continuation of the Mishnah that we're mentioning 3 things. So the Rebbe says that one can say one of the explanations in this. The words of the Mishnah look at three things, that the language of the Mishnah is a short thing that includes many things. It means not merely these three concepts that are mentioned later on in the Mishnah, but also the concept of three things in general. The Mishnah says a directive. Look at three things. A person has to look very deeply into three things, and through this you're not going to come to an Aveda. One can think that by him there has to be only two concepts, he himself and God to whom he serves. I was created to serve my Creator. So the Mishnah says, look at the fact that there are three things. A person has to look and see that there are three things in addition to his existence, Ani, and the existence of God, Koini, my Creator. There is a third thing. There is the entity of the world which God has created and through which a Yid, a Jew, serves his Creator. The purpose of creating the world, the goal of creating the world, and the ascent of the neshama, the godly soul below here in a physical body, in this low world, which there's nothing lower than this, is in order to accomplish the goal of Nis'ava Kadosh Baruch Hu Liyas LaYizbarach Dira B'Tachteinim. God has desired that there should be for him, blessed be he, a dwelling in the lower worlds, that a Yid, a Jew, through his service should refine and purify his body and nefesh achiyunis, his soul, his neutral soul, and the physicality and materialism of the world, and make from them a dwelling to God. And this he accomplishes through his service and a physical body down here with fulfilling Torah and mitzvahs, that the majority of mitzvahs were embedded in physical things. And through fulfilling a mitzvah with a physical thing, we refine and purify this physical thing, and we make from it a vessel for godliness, just like through the mitzvah of charity, the commandment of charity, which weighs over all other mitzvahs. It's the main, it's the basis of physical mitzvahs that have to do with action, and it rises on all of them, that a Yid takes from the work that he has worked with his own hands, from the physical money that he earned, and he gives the life of his soul to God, and similarly in all commandments. And this third thing, look at three things to make a dwelling in here below. It is not a side concept. Just contrary, this concerns the completeness of the previous two, the God and the man who serves, because God has desired there should be a dwelling in this world, as the Alter Rebbe points out in the 37th chapter of Tanya. Zeh kol ha'adam, this is the entire person. V'tachlus briosai, and is the goal of his creation, v'yiridosai leilam hazeh, and his descent to this world, liyas LaYizbarach Dira B'Tachteinim. There should be for him, blessed be he, a dwelling in the lower worlds. And it is so much concerning the person that he should look in three things, that for this was the descent of his soul down here through God, not paying attention to the greatness of elevation of the neshama above. Neshama shenasata b'tahorahi, the neshama that you have placed in me and given me is pure, where there is no room for opposite of purity. So God sent her down. Ata vrasa, you created her. Ata yitzarto, you formed her. Ata nefachta bi, you breathed it in me. Till in the physical world of deed, of action, of completion, olam ha'asiyah, hagashmis, where there is esachayim v'satoiv, God, the good and the life. And there's also the second way of the opposite of purity, till that the neshama needs to be guarded. Va'ata m'shamra b'kirbi, and God guards it within me, in order to fulfill this goal of making a dwelling in the lower worlds. At first glance, the descent of the neshama in our physical body is the opposite of the usual conduct of God, which is the source and goal of good and kindness, and it's the nature of good to do good, and due to his kindness and good, so there constantly should have been elevations. And here God takes a soul, a godly soul, and descends, it makes it descend down here, a great descent and a level of exile from a high roof to a deep pit. And so from this it is understood the greatest elevation and kindness of the service of making a dwelling down here, that for this it was worth it to send down the neshama down here, not for the neshama itself, because as the Alter Rebbe points out in Tanya, the neshama itself doesn't need correction whatsoever. In order to correct the body and the animated soul and its portion of the world, in order to make a dwelling in the lower worlds, because through the descent and the service of the neshama down here to make a dwelling in the lower worlds, it has accomplished even higher concept than the service of the neshama itself, above the revelation of the very essence of God, blessed be He, in the lower worlds. Till this elevation is drawn and accomplished also in the neshama that has descended below here, that in addition to the fact that the neshama reaches a higher level, which is above the place from which it has descended, the revelation of the strength of the neshama receives also a connection to the revelation of the very essence of God, which is accomplished through the service of the neshama down here in making this dwelling in the lower worlds. Accordingly, it is understood the directive of the Mishnah, Histakel b'shloisha dvorim, look at three things, not paying attention to the greatness of the elevation of the neshama v'yid, which is chelik l'kami mal mamish, it is a part of God from above. His avodah, service of God, has to constitute in this, that in addition to the fact that he makes from himself a dwelling to God through revealing his neshama, his godly soul and his physical body, the elevation of the neshama, which is accomplished through this, he should also look into three things and make a dwelling to God in the lower worlds of olam, of the world and concealment, that the concealment itself, the world itself, becomes a dwelling to God. And through this the man achieves also his own completeness, because this is the entire person and the goal of his creation. And although for him it is a descent externally and temporarily, it becomes only through this, it becomes elevation in him himself, that Einat Aboli De Aveda, through his service of making a dwelling in the lower worlds, Histakel b'shloisha dvorim, so Einat Aboli De Aveda, you don't even come to the possibility of a transgression. Not even. And accordingly, we'll also understand the concept of Geula, redemption, which is the letters of Goyla, exile, with the increase of an aleph. Geula, redemption, it does not nullify Goyla, the exile. Just it includes in itself Goyla, the exile. And to the contrary, this elevates the Goyla through instituting and revealing in it the master of the universe, because the goal is to make a dwelling to him, blessed be he, in the lower worlds, including how the lower worlds are in exile, to reveal the master of the universe in the lower worlds in their situation, the way they stand in exile. And to the contrary, in this constitutes the content and essence of redemption, also these concepts of redemption which are above world and exile, the change in the conduct of the world, like for instance, the resurrection of the dead, which is the revelation of God, the infinite God, blessed be He, in this physical world, till it becomes a dwelling to Him, blessed be He, in the lower worlds, to Him, to His very essence. And therefore, the concept of redemption depends upon our deed and our service of God, the entire duration of exile, Goyla, the avodah, the service of instituting the Aleph, the master of the universe, in Goyla, till through this it becomes accomplished Geula, redemption. The majority of the letters and the beginning of the word of Geula is Goyla, as mentioned above. In other words, in addition to the fact that the great elevation of the redemption comes through the descent in exile, similar to the revelation of the strength of the light of the neshama through its descent below here. The redemption is made up out of goyla, out of the exile, with the increase of the aleph itself. The dwelling to the very essence of God is accomplished in the lower worlds themselves, similar to the elevation that is accomplished in the neshama through the dwelling down here. This is the reason that the Rebbe points out in footnote 54. This is the reason why it's better 1 while in 1 hour in tshuva, in return and good deeds in this world from all the life of the world to come, because of the elevation and the service in this world, which can be accomplished only in this world, revealing the aleph in the goyla through doing a dwelling down here in these lower worlds, which is the pleasure of the one who created the world, which is above the entire world of spiritual world, which is the pleasure of the one who was created. And in the world to come there will be a revelation of this concept down here. And therefore the ultimate reward will be to neshamas in physical bodies in the resurrection of the dead, as the opinion of the Ramban, of Nachmanides, in the end of Shara Gmul, and to the contrary, in this basic work of Teres Adam, to the contrary, the world to come, the neshama will be fed, will be sustained and nourished from the body. And may we ultimate the revelation of the King Mashiach with the true complete redemption immediately. Have a nice day.